think it was just a matter of days. Maybe it was almost even immediately after stepping off the airplane at Fairbanks that I really had the sense that I was coming home. My name is Angie Schmidt, and I've been working at the Film Archive since 2000. I think it's about the closest job that you could have to being a time traveler, and that makes it really special. There is kind of a common theme. I think that when people came to Alaska, they realized it was a special experience and they wanted to document that. And then these collections would end up in someone's basement or someone's garage, and years and decades later, they might call us up from the East Coast or Colorado or wherever the films have ended up and say, my grandfather shot these on his visit to Alaska, or when he was working there as a teacher, would you be interested in them? And so that's where we step in and say, yes, people are interested in your films. They do want to see what Fairbanks looked like in 1930 or what Kotzebue looked like in 1950. This is a film from the William O. Field collection. William Field was a glaciologist in Alaska and throughout the northern areas. He's kind of known as the father of glaciology. The footage on this particular film is from 1927. It's a constant struggle, it's a constant race, it's a constant trying to outpace the ravages of time. So items come to us on whatever the format of the day was. 35mm film, black and white silent, Super 8mm film with a soundtrack or videotape. Once we've got that film here in the archives and we put it into cold storage in our film vault, we are really halting the process of decay for that film. And it might last another 100 years, 200 years, who knows? So we're always struggling to get scenes off of one decaying format onto another format, and then almost immediately it starts decaying as well, and so you've got to get that onto something new and newer and newer and newer. It never ends. That you can't ever say that well, it's preserved now and it's going to be fine for eternity. Well, I grew up in Iowa, and I lived there for about the first 25 years of my life. I got a degree in journalism from Iowa State University, and I worked for a couple years as a reporter at some small town newspapers in Iowa. But I always had this dream of wanting to explore the world, you know, and write about adventures that I was having. And sometime when I was about 25, you know, and all of my friends were starting to get married and have kids and settle down, I sort of thought, I need to have an adventure now before it doesn't happen. Alaska was always on the tops of my list of a place that I wanted to visit, and I concocted this scheme that I was going to go to University of Alaska Fairbanks and get a wildlife biology degree. But while I was working on pursuing that degree, I worked in the library and I worked in the photo lab. So when I graduated, I sort of had a choice to make. A position opened up in the Film Archives, which is right down the hallway. I applied and got a job, a staff position at the Alaska Film Archives. I have to be careful about, or we all have to be careful when we look at historical footage, to make sure that, you know, what's being shown to us. Is it reality, or is it someone's idea of what Alaska should be? I certainly have noticed in looking through most of our footage, there's sort of this concept of Alaska is this rugged place for individuals, and you're out there in the wilderness and the frontier, and so that's sort of the prepackaged story of Alaska, and I think it's important to keep in mind that that's not all that Alaska is about. I think too that that's one of the reasons I was so drawn to the Alaska Review project.
And I'm Eric Ekholm. Welcome to Alaska Review.
Alaska Review was a news program that was videotaped in Alaska in the 1970s and early 1980s.
The program which deals for 1 hour a month with Alaskan public affairs issues.
We have all the 2000 raw footage videotapes that were videotaped across Alaska during that 10-year segment of time when so many changes were taking place.
There is already $1.5 billion in the state coffers. This puts Alaska in the enviable position of deciding how to spend all this money, and there's no shortage of ideas.
$1.5 billion surplus? I think there's a lot of hungry people out here on the street that might need it.
They wanted to capture really a broad spectrum of Alaskan and Alaskan activities.
Improving the roads around here.
I think we should save some of it and give some of it back to the people.
Move the capital. Move the capital.
certain projects like renewable energy resources, perhaps exploration of outer space.
I think it could help some of the older people that have been up here for years.
I think they should look ahead to the future when the oil runs out, and that they should plan very carefully.
Save it.
That's one thing that I want to do before I would ever hang up my hat here at the Film Archives. I'm determined to see that those 2,000 tapes are saved, because I think that they really carry some historical significance, and I think people in the future will really be interested to look back and learn more about the decisions people were making when they were shaping this state.
30 seconds, 30 seconds. Five-time winner of the Women's World Championship race.
Rhythm and drum from way back, dances, festival, feast. Well, with everything along with it, it's our life.